It's for the safety of the people that we cannot allow them to come in right now.
When people living on Sullivan's Island in Isle of Palms heeded the call to evacuate, no one expected how hard it would be to get back home. Authorities on both islands declared martial law and called in the National Guard to deal with looters and maintain safety in the devastated area.
We prefer that no island residents come on the island until we get set up.
It meant limited access, even for people who could prove they lived there.
Now, this is my property. All these people here, all they want to do is go in and save their property.
Hugo took the Ben Sawyer Bridge out of commission, and the Isle of Palms connector, it didn't even exist back then, leaving island neighbors cut off from their homes. Some turned to private watercraft to check on their houses and boats, but the military was serious about keeping them out.
With guns drawn and in the air, we were chased away.
Eventually, officials arranged ferry boat rides for people to check on their property.
It's approximately going to take all these people 45 minutes to walk to their houses. They've been told that they have 2.5 to 3 hours on the island. They should have literally 15 minutes or half an hour at their houses.
Some residents found damage made even worse by rains that happened after the storm.
No group of looters, given the number of people that are over there, could have possibly do the amount of damage. It's incredible. It's the worst case of city management I've ever seen anywhere.
The roads are impassable. There's wires in the street. There's debris, trees uprooted, old oak trees, refrigerators are in the tree.
But while the destruction was a source of anger for some and heartbreak for others, it was also a reminder of what mattered most, the things that could not be replaced.
I just thank the Lord that I have my life, I have my wife and family, we're alive.
Though many people took the warnings to evacuate seriously, there were others who wouldn't or couldn't leave their homes.
And once Hugo roared in, the only thing they could do was to ride out the storm.
The duplex was right here, pretty much on the same footprint.
John Bench lived here on the Isle of Palms, just 2 blocks back from the beach at 28th Avenue and Cameron Boulevard.
I really didn't want to evacuate. I had everything here, all my boats, and I really should have gone.
John was all by himself that night, his wife and daughter off to Colombia. He was on the phone when it started to get bad.
And I heard a window break in, and I told them I had to go at that point in time. On the right side, one of the palm trees had blown over and had gone through the wall.
As water and wind gushed in, John nailed shut the door to that room and to the front of the house.
And as I peered out, I could see the torrents of water rushing down the street on 28th Avenue.
John boarded himself up into his daughter's room.
I did think I was going to die that night.
Pulled out a piece of notebook paper and scribbled out a will.
It was just to let people know that who I was, and I took that into my wetsuit and kept it with me.
With his surfboard at his side, John planned out an escape.
If the storm surge would have gotten up as high as I thought it would have, I would have gotten on my surfboard and ridden the surge down to the recreational department.
But it wouldn't come to that because the water had reached its height.
It was not quite up to my knees, so it was right up about here.
As the sun rose, spotlighting the damage, John spent the following weeks picking up just like everybody else.
There was a pile of debris right here that was at least 6 foot high.
And then, 10 days later, John's family came back home.
My wife and my daughter, I can remember them walking up the road, and that was probably the best sight I've seen ever, to see their faces again and hold them in my arms again.
And Hugo changed the landscape of both towns on either side of this bridge, the Ben Sawyer Bridge.
The Mount Pleasant of today looks very different than it did the night the storm made landfall.
Living here my entire life, It is the only major hurricane I've ever seen.
The year Hugo hit, Cheryl Woods Flowers sold houses. The day after the storm, there was very little untouched inventory left.
And certainly, you know, Mount Pleasant, we didn't have the devastation that they did on the islands. My friends on the islands, they were just looking for a picture, looking for something, because their homes were gone. I mean, there's still foundations over there where houses were removed by the water that have never been built back. I thought, like everybody else thought, that property values were going to be really hit hard, and they were in some places, but I think that what it did was it brought a resurgence of people renovating. New things were built. A lot of money came into the area, as you can imagine, because of all the devastation. I mean, every truck was a framer, a roofer, a painter, and a lot of money was spent. There was a huge influx of dollars.
The bustling Mount Pleasant that you see today is far different than the pre-Hugo community.
Well, in 1989, a house in Old Mount Pleasant, maybe in the Indian Village, was probably worth 50, 65, maybe 75,000 at the most. That house, same house now, is over 500.
Woods Flowers stops short of giving Hugo credit for the Mount Pleasant residential explosion, but admits it was a catalyst.
People were going to move here anyway because of the baby boomers retiring, selling the expensive properties where they came from and buying cheaper here, buying taxes. When I tell people what their annual taxes are, they say, well, is that per month? No, that's your whole, that is everything. Because they're paying 10, 15, 20, they're paying income taxes in the cities, and so that's what's driving the train.
It wasn't only homeowners who took a hit with damage from the storm. Many business owners were reeling too.
And coming up, we'll talk to a Mount Pleasant man who rode out the storm to protect his source of income.